Chapter 7. The Theory of Getting Out of Focus. During my child's exercises, as I was coming down the stairs from leaving my child in the second class, I was writing and reading about other things before then, and I climbed down the stairs in a desperate manner, desperate to get to the laptop, and I write and write, and I cannot stop writing. Sometimes I feel that to be able to truly feel and perceive, and to be in contact with my impulses, I have to get somewhat out of focus. It is as if I need my five senses not to be so involved in the situation. It is as if this way I would gain some type of aerial view. But in reality, it's not aerial view. It is a way of feeling and perceiving to which I have never been used to, and of which I had never realized up to this instant when I remember the numbered items below, in that order, like lightning bolts that came to my mind. And about the one that is not numbered, I remembered as I typed this paragraph. I just realized that the essence of all those things is exactly the same: getting out of focus, getting out of the body a little to be able to perceive in a more global way. Or maybe it's not really getting out of the body. It is more accurate to say that since the five senses are not so involved, as if they were nuts, roots, or nuts that tie themselves to what is directly in contact with them, without letting us see beyond what is right in front of us. As we detach a little from our five senses, we can then have a little more access to that which is always with us, our energy, our guide. I don't know how to call it. That which so many people, including me up to a few years ago, do not even consciously realize that exists, and that is always there, ready, available. That term, getting out of focus, occurred to me one time, without me knowing why, in one of those letters that write themselves in me for that being. I had never used that word in my life, and it was very curious to me that even though I was writing about other things, what was suddenly writing itself on paper was about the importance of getting out of focus. And now, many months after that, without ever using that term again, and without even remembering about it ever again, that term comes suddenly to me as something that downloads itself in me out of nowhere. And I have to write and write and write without break until that fluid stops. And the most beautiful thing about that fluid is not even what I write on the paper. The most beautiful is what I feel in my body, in my eyes, in my chest that is about to explode. Many, many times I have to stop because it is such an intense kind of energy that runs throughout my body. So intense that in that peak moment I have to stop anything and everything I'm doing and just wait and allow and feel that energy flowing throughout my body. And in that peak moment, whatever was trying to write itself down is not written, because it is impossible to even move a finger under those circumstances. But I feel that what is happening inside my body is extremely important, more important than anything else, even much more important than myself. It is like a type of blessing. And I am very thankful to my universe for this and for having had patience with me all this time during which I was not understanding what was happening in me, for loving me during all those moments in which perhaps doubt or fear used to dominate me, for having loved me in all those prior moments of my life, especially in all those years in which I was the most disconnected from myself, and for always being there, always, until I finally reached that beautiful point in my existence, that point so sublime and so marvelous and so pure, that point from which I am very convinced now there is no return, absolutely no return. Number one, the way I was able to realize that something that was almost about to happen should not happen. Something happened to us. The bank that we always used, to which we belong ever since we moved to this city, was unexpectedly closing its doors in the place that it had always been located, and was moving to the western extreme of the city, very far, extremely far from where we live. And that, in this world in which we live, with such incredible technology, in which almost everything is done online, should not be a problem for anyone. But for us, it is a huge problem for the specific conditions of our lives, for the lack of time, for how tight my schedule is, because everything in our lives takes place in the eastern part of the city. So, having to suddenly go to the western part of the town at least once a month in the specific times that this bank works, it is just totally impossible. But in the specific situation, me and my mom, it is better to stay there. Even under those new and very difficult conditions, moving to a closer and more flexible bank would mean having to practically change our whole lives. But the more we thought about it, the more we analyzed my schedule and the bank schedule back and forth, and analyzed all the possibilities. And we realized that no way, it is impossible to even think about going there, if even just once a month. And using the available technology for everything would not work for us. So we decided that we had no other option. We had to find a bank that was closer to us and more flexible than the one we had. Even if that meant that we had to leave some formal things in that other bank. So we asked around and finally decided to become members of a bank much closer to my mother's home. We went there one day, and from the very beginning there was something I did not like very much: the employees. Because there were not many customers at the moment, were all talking behind the counter, laughing in a very loud manner, somewhat similar to when one enters in a conversation when there are many people gathered in a backyard celebrating something and having a good time. They were like that during a couple of minutes, without even taking a second to interrupt their conversation and see what we wanted. Finally, a very friendly gentleman approached us and asked us to go to his office. He was so exaggeratedly friendly and so talkative that everything just went to the other extreme. And my mother was totally enchanted with all that friendliness and all that conversation. We explained to him that we both needed to open accounts there, and we explained the reason why we needed to do it, etc. So he decided, maybe out of courtesy, to start with my mother. And I was very involved in all of that, very actively, more or less during the first 10 minutes. But there was a point where my senses could not take so much exaggerated sweetness anymore. And everything came to a point where it looks like they became somewhat disgusted with so much sweetness so directly that they had to disengage a little. Probably so they could continue to be able to assimilate all that conversation without getting to the very extreme of being totally disgusted. The fact is that as the five senses were able to disengage a little from that conversation, my whole being went up to a different state. I cannot say that my being reached an ingravity state per se, because that is impossible as long as I am on this planet. But my being was truly able to reach a total out of focus state. And in that moment, I was able to be in that state of aerial view without being totally tied up to what was directly in front of me by my five senses. And that allowed me to start to see, or not really to see, to feel very clearly what was happening, and to perceive in a very different way what that gentleman was telling us. And I could not be totally engaged anymore. I had the need to start to look at my phone as if I was reading something, with the excuse in my mind that he was dealing with something directly related to my mother, not me. So I had no reason to be directly involved in that. And the moment came when he finished with my mom's account and started with mine. And when I gave him my personal information, he went to an office, and we did not see him anymore in a long time. And he came back with the same frantic, unrestrained gentleness, but explaining to me that I am not sure, due to what situation I had 10 years ago, they could not benefit me in the same way as they did to my mother. And they were already going to even charge her, I do not know how or what amount, for not having direct deposit. So what he was explaining to me, in all his excessive kindness, was something like, they were doing a huge favor to me. They would allow me to open an account there, and I do not know what else he was going to say. I simply interrupted him and said, "But what do you mean? That your supervisor is telling me that as a favor they're going to do that?" And he was starting to explain that was correct, very kindly, that for this reason and for this other reason, with all that unleashed kindness and friendliness, to which I say, "Oh no, I thank you. But under those circumstances, I am the one that does not want to open the account. I really do not want anyone to feel that this is a favor they're doing to me." And it seems that there was some kind of powerful communication between us, a kind of communication that is much more powerful than words or even thoughts. A communication that does not need any time to travel from transmitter to receiver. It happens at the same instant in the people directly involved. He got this right away, while it took my mom a few seconds to realize what was going on. And when she realized about it, she started to act in a very disoriented way, trying to persuade me to change my mind. But he did not do anything like that, because at that split second when that instantaneous communication happened between us, his face, his whole being instantly transformed. All that layer of excessive friendliness and kindness instantly washed away from him, and a very unpleasant and even rude expression took over his whole being. We walked away from there, and my mom was in a mix of feelings and thoughts. between her amazement at how I was able to have such mental clarity and stand in such determination, and her worry about her account now open there and I would not be there, and her concern about how rude I had been, looking at my phone while he was talking. And I started to explain to her, and she really did not understand what I was trying to explain. So I gave up trying and I just told her not to worry about anything. And yes, life has a way to solve everything when we are open to it and allow ourselves to flow with it. So now my mom's account in that bank is successfully closed, and we have found ways to happily continue to use our old bank. Ways that we could not have even seen or feel before, but that we were totally able to sense once we were fully able to realize that this is the direction in which we needed to go. Number 2, that the way I was able to allow something that was senselessly stuck to flow once and for all. My mom, very astonished by something I told her, she suddenly said, "But I am very impressed by all the huge mental strength you have lately. What do you mean by, instead of senselessly pushing a wall, I prefer to let it dissolve by itself and then go through without any effort?" That phrase is very interesting. There was something very unbelievable that took place in my life about a month ago, and everything happened in a very absurd manner, and even in a very adverse way, around something so simple, the purchase of a small tablet. In the main store where they are sold and the connections for the internet and phone services are made. What 95% of people would have done, what I would have done in those first 42 years of my life, and what my mom had spent about a month insisting me to do, insisting even to the point of getting upset with me many times, is to go to the store to discuss this matter, call this place or the other, enter into that trouble and that never-ending wear. And I, totally inert, without knowing if I am doing the right thing or not, but my instinct is telling me to do absolutely nothing. Or maybe it is that I am not really feeling any signs from my instinct, and that does not allow me to take any kind of action, not even be mad at my mother when she insists and pushes me a little too much. And there I was, totally inert about that topic, seeing how the events unfold themselves in total amazement about the absurdity of the situation, seeing how one thing causes another, and even more unbelievable, more absurd, but without being able to find the energy to do something about it. Not out of frustration or fear or anything like that. It is simply as if, about that particular topic, I wasn't truly inside my body and everything was just happening through me, without any of my 5 senses being able to involve themselves too much in any of that. Something as if I did not have any desire to spend my energy in any of that. Immovable. My monthly plan expired yesterday, and I tried, and there was no way I could be able to enter my information and put more money into the account. Any kind of information about the tablet to be able to call my mother when I told her. But I am going to call, and what am I going to be able to tell them? That I am calling to add money to a tablet, but I do not even know which one it is? Or what is the number assigned to it, or anything? What do you think they will say? But how can we solve anything in this way, dear customer? No, I just cannot call without at least knowing what is the phone number that identifies the tablet. And my mom started to have one of those nervous laughter attacks, and she could not stop laughing. I tried to enter 2 days ago in their internet site, entered my information, and nothing. At the end of every attempt, they kept telling me that they could not find me. And I had not been able to find where I put the number of the tablet to see if they would be able to find me that way. Suddenly that afternoon, something similar to a text came in. They were telling me that I had not paid the monthly amount, and that text disappeared in an instant. And I was not able to find it again since it wasn't sent through the normal way. And there I was, in total desperation. My God, but how did I allow this text to disappear like that? Maybe it contains some type of information that could help me. And whatever was in that text escaped from me as water through my fingers. But that was the first sign that at least something was moving around this topic. It was not stagnant anymore. Nothing to do at that precise moment, though, so I went on with my life. The next day, very early in the morning, I opened the tablet to at least charge it a little bit. I suddenly see a text similar to the previous one. I put myself in total attention so it would not disappear from me. In that moment, I was in a hurry because I had to take my mother to doctor's appointments. I made sure to close the tablet very carefully so when I open it again, the text will be there. I came back from all the errands I had to run, and how happy I was to see that this marvelous text was there waiting for me. And in the most calm way, I allowed my instinct to guide me in each step I should take. And from one step, I started to discover the next, and following that path, I was able to find the number of the tablet and was able to enter my information in their internet site and was able to add the monthly amount of money to the account. And just like that, as I suddenly and in a very calm manner told my mother that day, after a month of going through this sequence of unbelievable absurds and total desperation, instead of senselessly pushing a wall, I prefer to let it dissolve by itself, and then I go through without any effort. And 5 months of me happily using the tablet have passed by already in total flow, in total joy. Number 3, the way I have been able to feel, truly feel, that being so intensely, so uniquely. As I was thinking about what I wrote in the previous paragraphs, I remember many things I feel with that being, and its insistence to involve the 5 senses as much as possible, and my almost necessity of involving the senses the least possible the majority of the times. And perhaps that has been what has allowed me to feel this being in such a way in which I have not been able to feel anyone, even when they may have shared my same space and all my 5 senses. Could this be part of the reason why everything has happened in the way that it has happened in respect to this being? The way I have been able to flow, truly flow, in my dance classes and in all my other exercise classes. For a little less than 2 years, I have been attending a gym. And even though I take several classes there is a particular one that I have come to love very deeply. And like in many other things that have happened to me in the past 2 years, if someone would have ever told me that I would be going to a gym, and especially doing that type of class, I would have thought that person was totally crazy. Not for anything in particular about the gym or the class, but because of the way my personality has been all those first 42 years of my life. I have always been very shy, and I have always been very, well, I have described all that enough and do not think I have the desire to go back to even think about that ever again. At least not more than absolutely necessary. Anyways, I still remember that day when I went there for the first time. The class was full, and the majority of the people in the class were 65 years old and beyond. And even though in my younger years I always liked to dance, and I did it pretty well, when I got to the class I was lost. And not only was I lost, my body could not resist, even though I had been walking and doing exercise on my own for the previous 10 months. And all those people that I would not have expected to be able to do any of those moves and steps started to look at me and started to encourage me, and even taught me many tricks to be able to learn faster. They became a true source of inspiration and the main reason why I did not give up on it at those early beginnings. I went from one instructor to the next on the different days of the week. And as the first couple of months went by, I was slowly but surely getting more comfortable with the whole process. But I still felt that even though I was getting pretty good at it, there was something missing. And I couldn't really tell what was missing. I was being able to pretty much dance just like the teachers, except, of course, anything involving bending my knees. But that is part of another story. Like I said, I could not pinpoint exactly what was missing, even though I could clearly sense it. And the instantaneous clarity came a few days after a different instructor started to take over most of the classes at the time of day that I could attend the gym. The types of movements and the parts of the body that needed to move and the variety of the dances and the steps were simply impressive. One had to really pay attention to be able to follow. So I started to try not to miss even a second of what the instructor was doing. I guess I was doing that out of the obsession of being a perfectionist. But I felt stiff and constricted. Something was not quite right. And again, I could sense it, but could not pinpoint exactly what it was. Until one magical day when I realized that that day and a few days prior to that one, I was flowing, truly flowing. Flowing to the point that I didn't really know what I was doing. Flowing to the point that I did not remember what was happening. And I thought, I better pay attention or I am going to be lost. And the minute I started to truly pay attention and trying to count every step the teacher was doing and to copy every movement and so forth and so on, I instantly felt that my body was not flowing as much, that I became somewhat stiff and constricted again. And my movements and steps were being as perfect as the teachers, but I was not feeling that inner flow, that magical flow that brings beauty to everything we do. And I was very intrigued by this. And I started to think about the few days prior to that, those days that I had felt those flashes of magical flowing. I had felt them, but I had not realized at the moment. And again, when I started to use my five senses a little too much, either some step went wrong, or I missed a turn, or I paid too much attention, most of the times in a critical way, to how my body was moving. I was just not flowing as in those few times when I had lived and felt those flashes of magical flowing. And I remember everything coming to a point when I said, or thought to myself, you know what? Who cares? I am just going to disconnect myself and just flow with it. And one day, several days after that, I had a very deep experience. I realized I was truly flowing, totally flowing, to the point that I realized my body was there, performing all those dances, all the steps, going through all the motions, but the true me wasn't so much there. It was as if the true me was floating somewhere close to the ceiling or up in the clouds. So beautiful. And I experienced something I had experienced so many times before, for so many years already. I was meditating. My body was there dancing, but the true me was meditating, without me having even the slightest intention to do that. It was such a delightful experience. Now I became really excited because, honestly, for the last few months I had tried to meditate, but could not get myself to do it. I wanted to do it. I loved the feeling of it, but did not have the patience, so much eagerness in me, so much energy all the time, so much that I nearly always felt the true me was like a playful ball bouncing off my body all the time, not wanting to be still, not wanting to be restricted, not even wanting or needing to sleep many times. So happy, so joyful. But I loved the sensations and the feeling that meditation always brought to me. So maybe without me consciously knowing, I started to, in my mind, see and reflect on how I was able to do that. And I realized that my eyes were usually staring at a metal object that stuck out of the ceiling, like a water outlet for the fire extinguishing system or something like that. Other times my eyes were staring at the mirror, but not at me or at any particular person or object, just in a type of unfocused gaze in the direction of the mirror. And the moments I needed to look at something, I would look at the instructor's feet to sense the steps she was doing, to then quickly get lost in the cuddling arms of my true self again. Now my eagerness to go to that class was multiplied at least by 100. Not only was I exercising my body and feeling great, but I was also able to feel that magical flow with all my intention and with all my being. And I was being able to meditate again. Yes, it is a different kind of meditation. Perhaps most people would not call that meditation, but it works wonders for me. And it makes me feel total joy and love and appreciation of my world and of me. And then I realized that the other classes that I also loved so much and knew were so beneficial for my body were staying behind in my priorities. And something inside of me did not want that to happen. So I started to unintentionally sense ways to incorporate those meditation-like feelings into them. And I would have thought that it is nearly impossible, since those other classes involve different sizes of dumbbells and bars and exercise balls, but the inner unintentional drive or desire that I had to do it appears to have been much more powerful than all the doubts in the world put together. So I started with the most automatic and steady routines, and it was so fulfilling to me to feel that wholeness that I felt for the first time ever. And I have been more and more submerged in this experience and in this feeling, to the point that I am now able to do the majority of the routines of that 1 hour class with my eyes closed, being one with myself. And I am joyfully watching me going back to a couple of classes I had stopped attending. And I am enjoying them like I never did before, in total communication with myself, just me with me, regardless of how many other people are in the room at any particular moment. And writing about all of this, I realized that it is not to change the attention and to focus on something else. It is to continue with the attention and the intention on that, whatever that may be, but without having our five senses 100% involved with it. So this way we are able to attach ourselves a little less to that and merge a little more with that we always have around us, inside of us. That which allows us to feel and perceive in a way that is much more extensive, more intense, complete, clear, lucid, full, and yes, in the precise cases, pleasurable.